afternoon, everyone. Hello, good afternoon, everyone. How's it been? Are we good? All right. I'm happy to be here. And what we're about to do is a fusion of what we had in our program for yesterday after the breakout, which was a panel session that we had captured, Building Africa's Venture Architecture, a cross-sector insights from AI, innovation, and industry leaders. If you recall, yesterday we had 6 tracks, and each of those tracks, I would believe, did due diligence to the topics that they were asked to. Track 1 was on digital health, 2 was on something that's tied to fintech, digital trust, and cybersecurity. All right, so track 3 was where we dealt with smart systems and engineering setups like the satellite technology that Abdullah has been working on. 4 was about smart governance and public administration. Track 5 was centered around climate technology and carbon assets. And then 6 was on the creative economy and digital media. What we're about to do now is to have these facilitators come up here so we can do a cross-fertilization of ideas as stemmed from their interactions with their various audiences yesterday, as well as the facilitators that we have had thus far this morning. So if you look at the program, there was supposed to be panel 2, which was designed to interact with those who have made presentations this morning from the 2 keynote speakers and the masterclass. So we're combining both because actually some of the facilitators are overlapping. So we think that's going to be a healthy way of approaching it, and then we can share with us what we actually think from a design point, from an architecture point, what this BIV thing intends to achieve. All right, so let's have our 6 facilitators from yesterday. That would be Mr. Okikioluwa Onamade. That's track 1. Then we have Akwemi Olaifa for track 2. We have Abdullah Al-Salmani for track 3. We have Dr. Uche Wanchukwu for track 4. We have Mrs. Folawemi Omunna for track 5 and Mr. Peter Ikoro for track 6. Joining them upstage would be Arvin, Nisi, and Bekere. Bekere just took us through the masterclass, likewise Arvin and Nisi. So in turns, we're going to try to be brief so that it goes round really quickly. And this goes to, this goes to Okikioluwa, Akwemi, Dr. Nwachukwu, and Folawemi, and then Ikoro. I would like you to tell us that one thing that resonated very strongly in the course of your presentation yesterday, which reinforces that which we must get right, because for some, and for some of you too, you can tell you've been here. I think you've been here, and we've had talks how great things can be, institutional, as a country, and it just fizzles out over time. And then you look back in time and you feel like, oh, so it was just talk and no action. What is that one thing that must happen for your area of specialty, which you anchored on yesterday, all right, to materialize, to succeed and not fail?
In our session yesterday, the main headline that we agreed was that data in its current form, the way we collect, the way we process, and the way we use data should be digitized. And this should be an effort that is across board. And digitizing data as a first step would anchor the next phase of then ensuring that the workforce is able to harness digitalization or start implementing or using AI different daily operations. But ensuring that we have a process of digitizing data will be that first step.
Thank you. Okay.
While we discussed so many things around AI, financial systems, innovation in the fintech and the digital trust, I think one key thing from the breakout session yesterday was the fact that we need to find a way to embed security right from the point of designing. Most of the time, security is usually afterthought. The product is ready, and then that's when we remember that we're supposed to actually test it to see if it's not vulnerable and everything is 100%. But then that's a mistake we make most of the time. Based on my years of experience in the industry, you find out that it's until an incident has occurred that people go back to the drawing board to then say, what didn't we do right as regards security? So what was key is, right from the point of even birthing the idea, even the point of your prototype, you've already included security measures as your baseline. From code review to development to testing the application to even testing the market, to even stress testing the application, to even see if you'd experience downtime at any time. So security is meant to be by design and not an afterthought. And I said to everybody in the masterclass, in the breakout session, yesterday, that if you're going to design something, a product, and security, the product being secure is not your first goal, then I think you should not design it at all.
Thank you. Abdullah?
So during the session itself, we discussed the use cases of satellites, similar to what we discussed here, but we dive deeper into the use cases in agriculture, as well as other industries that are relevant to us in the region in general, as well as the general use cases and benchmarks from other markets that actually implemented satellite systems. What really resonated was the questions that we had from the people attending and the interaction from the students, each giving their ideas on how they can implement it in their relevant fields. So it was really nice to see that interaction and dive into these discussions.
Thank you. We established that regulation is key to the survival of ventures, and that is where government comes in. So we looked at it and read it, and we discovered that the policy consistency, corruption in the system will be injurious to investors. And so except government takes a decision and that political will to do what is right, we'll still be having problem with investors having the right climate to put down their investment. So that's one of the things we discovered.
Thank you, sir. Salawi.
My track was about how to enhance the quality, which is a form of carbon finance for project in climate change. And it was interesting to say that a lot of projects are going on in Babcock that qualifies for carbon credit. in which we can get funding to do the kind of things that we want to do. However, a lot of them are abandoned, lots of really being followed through. So I'm thinking the two things that we need beginning this BIV movement is clearly defined goals. We need to be able to articulate. We need to be able to understand exactly how we want this to be. It's going to be in phases, phase 1, phase 2, whatever that is. The other one are the systems that is going to deliver the goals, so the processes, the habits, anything that's going to make us have that clear understanding of what we need to do to get to where we want to go. And this will involve a structured responsibility matrix. Who does what? Timeline. What do we want to be seeing? How do we measure success? The KPIs and the rest of that. So the highlight of my track was that we have a project that are ongoing that we can scale, and we have an Abdallah Air that can, collaborate with us on doing this fight.
Yeah, I like that, collaboration.
Yesterday we had a very robust section in track 6 talking about media, branding, and the creative enterprise. For the generic media, we were made to know that without content, there is nothing like media. If you go into mass media, social media, build media, media is the vehicle to carry the narrative. Now we have to x-ray the various narrative. We want to get the proper alignment, and we narrowed it to the first generic 3 form of creativity, which are normally lifestyle. Talk about drama, movies. We went ahead to talk about games and sports. Then we talk about music. Then we're now looking at how AI can influence those aspects. And went further to look at the various dynamics of media. You have some sections in media. So you have the audio, you have the visuals, we have the transmission for those who do major media work and branding as well. So we have to look at, today logo is not just a fixed thing, it's a system. And we have to bring animations to logos and all stuff like that. So those are the things we're talking about. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I'll switch to Nisi, who is a managing partner at CC Hub. And you've engaged us twice this morning. First as a keynote speaker, and secondly in the masterclass which you co-anchored with Arvin. Now, CC Hub helps with building ecosystem infrastructures, and you've been doing that for quite a while now, and you've been plugged into that space for equally quite a while. Now, I'd like you to be very direct with us in this room. Where have you failed? In other words, what is it that you have done that, because you see, one reality check and test for us is that we could do everything we're doing here and fail, right? So this is CC Hub. You've been there, you've been doing it, and you are still doing it. So what was that, just one use case, where everything looked right, but then it failed. And now you have the privilege of hindsight. You're able to look back and you are able to tell, oh, this is where we got it wrong. It didn't look quite hit at the time, but we failed. Yes, thank you.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Iniri. I think there are tons of use cases, right? And I think one of the most important things, even in the innovation ecosystem, is the ability to collect feedback quickly and iterate, right? But an example of a use case, and just to clarify your question, this is an example from my experience, right? Where something was going to tell you. Okay, sure. So essentially, there was what led us down the path of being obsessed with design thinking, or human-centered design thinking, HCD as we call it, was a particular project that we had done what we're trying to, and I'll be a bit vague around it for certain reasons because there are certain partners involved in that. It was a solution that we're trying to build in the health tech space, and we had relied heavily on, because a lot of times, and we had referenced this both from my keynote, but also in the masterclass, that at each point in time when you're building something, of course, there's the technical expertise, the technology part of it, and there's domain expertise, and those things need to come together very strongly if your solution is going to be effective. And so we were partnered with a particular partner, and we believed that they had the domain expertise and we were coming with the innovation and technology element. And so we just asked certain questions. So, okay, do you have this? They say, yes, we have it. Is it like this? We said, yes. We didn't validate any of those, and we just built based on that feedback that we had gotten. And it got to the time to launch. And so we went live, and then we found that a lot of the things were just assumptions, and it failed at that point. We basically had to go back and start to, iterate, of course, taking more into consideration a lot of key things, behavior, user data, all of those things. To the institution is that at the end of the day, we can be well-intentioned in whatever it is that we want to achieve. And if we're not, one, honest with ourselves and committed to a rigorous process, a test and refine process, then we're never really going to see the value that we want to see. Now, the reason why I said honest with ourselves is that, and it's one of the icks, or it's one of the things that frustrates me the most when I look at the ecosystem, or even when you start to come to the, there's a part of the work I do that borders on the development system, is there's this obsession with looking like we're doing without actually being about the results. So it becomes performative in the activities and the things that we put together, and without really focusing on the key results. So when it's performative, or when we get busy with looking like we're doing, we start to look at vanity metrics as a measure of success for the kind of outcomes that we want to achieve. And I mean, you said it, the work that I do, and every single morning when I wake up, what I'm thinking about is Africa's prosperity and how to truly enable that the real lives through innovation can actually benefit from that. So I think that there's a world where we need to be honest with ourselves beyond just good intention, to say how do we make sure the activities and the things we're putting in place are truly creating those results, and being honest enough with ourselves to be able to take feedback and test and refine and iterate quickly.
Thank you very much. When we were kids, there was this thing about NEPA, and then we grew up, and of course when we were kids, generators were not really common around us. You relied on the NEPA to give you the power, and for those of us who followed like football, you pray that there's power. When Nigeria was playing, that was when we were following the Super Eagles very passionately. They have broken our hearts many times that we no longer care too much. And then we grew up, and then it was renamed PHCN, Power Holding Corporation of Nigeria, and then we were wondering whether the intent is now to hold power from us. A lot of things have been happening in that space, right? And the question now before us, you're looking at infrastructural layers that need to be put in place. You're talking energy, you're talking connectivity, you're talking data, because nowadays people want to be able to not just generate, they want to be able to supply, and the one who's consuming wants to be able to measure, and a whole lot of things around that. And these days too, you have connectivity, data being infused into all of that, because we want to track intelligently. And of course with AI, being a major feature in all of this. Question now is, how will an institution like ours make something meaningful of this venture, considering that for the longest it's been a very capital intensive area of endeavor, with quite a number of regulations that also make it hard for you to look into that area. So what's the buy-in for us as an institution? Because it's one area that I can tell you we're very much interested in, but are lacking in the know-how as to what it is that we must do. And BIV is now looking at it as an area that we can infuse into our scope so that we get we get it right.
So I was opportune to have some, let me say, feasibility study on this campus this morning, and it's amazing the kind of assets that you have. Because one of the challenges for renewable energy is space, land, which is a very high value asset in this part of the world, which is not a challenge for you. So even if we are not going to be having a solar mounted on the roof, we can have a ground mounted solar. That's what I found out this morning. However, the capital side of things, like you mentioned, is huge. The layout is huge, and that's where the carbon credit is coming in. You are sitting on gold mine with the ecological assets that you have here. And I'm thinking we should get busy with registering some of this thing for carbon credit, and then we'll be able to use the finance to do this investment that we are proposing to do. However, carbon credit are as good as its quality and its integrity. And one of the things that marks it as premium is the measurement, which is where the Abdallah side will come in. If you can design all the satellite for us, take pictures, gather numerous data, and we plug in the Internet of Things into it, it gives us premium carbon credit. So we have the assets. I was impressed that you have a biodigester, that is taking sewage and converting it, having a biogas. We need to scale up on that. So you have a lot of avenues and projects that can generate funding for what we need to do. But I would recommend a solar system, modular solar system, and in a way that you can even sell to your neighboring community, because you have what it takes. And it's going to be backed with a battery system, which is called the battery energy storage system. So these are the things that can be built.
Thank you very much. I'll quickly connect with Abdullah. What is it that we must do? Because your area of expertise is one that currently we do not have much going on in that area. But we're being very futuristic. We want to touch tomorrow today, right? And to do that, you must plug the gaps. You're coming from an environment where I'm thinking funding is not your biggest problem. I'm thinking, right? You could correct me on that, but I'm thinking that funding is not your biggest problem. What is it we must do that will help to extend into this frontier of satellite technology that you're into? Some years back, I traveled with my students to, I think, what you call the Dubai Oasis something, your own variant of Silicon Valley, Yeah, and we were hosted by a gentleman who made us to understand that the satellite technology, space technology, was at the front burners of what your country was very much investing into. And then when, in the course of organizing this program, you were mentioned and we looked up your profile, and one of us had met up with you in a similar summit not too long ago. We were intrigued about what you bring to the table. And I'm like, okay, so this is really showing that the whole world has changed. That was 2022. Back then, up until now, evidence that it wasn't just about ambition, but ambition matched with purpose. and the evidence that we have today. So what is it that Babcock University, because at the end of the day, yes, we've had government presence. Yesterday we had the representative of the Minister of Innovation, and then we had the Commissioner for Education here in Ogun State where we are. You want some bit of policy alignment, all right, and they can give you this, but what should we be doing as an institution, all right, to bridge that gap so much so that we're able to achieve something tangible that we can showcase, like you were trying to show us the kind of stuff that your students do and all of that, so that when we invite you later, we're going to have to showcase something like that that shows that we have also matched ambition with purpose and results.
So, thank you for mentioning that, and maybe why did I maybe smile when you said funding is not the biggest issue? Because actually you're right about it, funding is not the biggest issue, but not as people see it. People see that basically, unfortunately, whenever we travel to other countries, went and people thought that basically we avail grants. The biggest challenge that we found is that you can actually build things in much simpler. So SpacePoint started from $1,500 a watt. So we won a competition and they started from there. But along with that, we basically went against the general norms of actually going with the full space standards and things, and we studied the deep aspects of it. So I believe in markets like the MENA region, or basically the Middle East and Africa in general, we've seen this in Egypt, and it worked really well. Where basically we simplified the concepts. You don't need to go to radiation hardened things and so expensive components, and this is where CubeSats come into place. DIY components that you can use everywhere. So like the professor was mentioning, basically the same technology that is used in satellite, we discovered that we can reuse it and use it in, for example, solar powered irrigation systems. And actually we've done that. So back before I go full-time on SpacePoint, I had another startup that was irrigation-based. We used the same thing exactly that we were developing here, we used it there. With, of course, certain considerations of temperature ranges and how you do the testing and these aspects. So I guess it's all about the mindset and how to set up things. So this is why we simplified the whole journey in a not step by step, but it's a 3 steps process where students go according to standards and data sheets, but also implement everything on hands-on, and they get the theory. So they are already getting the theory from their classes. But it's all about finding the slight bridge between the industry and academia and showing them how they can play a role in it. Because that's what we see in internships. If they get the internship in the university itself, similar experience, this is how we thought about it, and this is how we've done it in general.
Thank you, Dr. Thank you very much. Dr. Uche Mwachukwu, BIV is being launched. Yesterday we were here and it got launched. Not just in any establishment, but a private university. The question now is, what are the limits of what an institutional ecosystem can do when, especially when state infrastructure that those ventures depend on remains broken? Practical steps now, because we can do all the theoretical work and context now. So what is it that we must do in this kind of situation, given the scope of our influence that helps us to achieve tangible results, even if the larger society is being poorly governed?
Thank you so much. In this situation, we cannot give up because of the challenges. In as much as we agree that without government interventions, it may be difficult to get some things going on in this kind of project. But the institution must start from the angle they can in a little way, and do what they can while reaching out. For instance, when we talk about infrastructure, we're looking at roads, we're looking at maybe some things that are beyond our scope, that government should come in to help us in order to make sure that we achieve our goal. Ordinarily, if we are in a same environment, these are the things that should be provided as enablers for these hubs investments to come on board. But in Nigeria, we provide for ourselves. For instance, we know that communities build road for themselves, get water for themselves, get even electricity for themselves. Because if you fold their hands, you will not make any progress. Nothing will be done. So Babcock should start a little, as much as the strength can carry them, while reaching out to the authorities responsible to come to our aid in those areas that are capital intensive. When they see our effort, they will certainly do something if we get to the right condition. Because whether we like it or not, Nigeria is still operating on the basis of who do you know connection to get things done. And if we as an institution were able to reach out to the right people, they may give us positive response. But while we're waiting for that, the much we can do within our strength, within our power, within our limited resources, we should not relent, but we should push forward. While we're pushing, somehow, somewhere, help from outside will come. Not only from government, there may be some organizations that we can reach out who will pick interest in what we are doing. For instance, many people don't know what Babcock has in mind in trying to establish this hub. We reach out to some organizations along the line. Many of them may pick interest, who will come in to help us get some of the infrastructures that will drive what we are trying to do. When it's not sure what I'm saying is that we shouldn't give up, let us start. They say one step at a time. With that, we'll be able to get to a bigger picture. Thank you.
Thank you. We will not give up. If there's something I threw from your comments, connections still do matter. So we keep doing it, keep shining, and push the visibility until we get seen. And then by doing so, we attract the right kind of persons or establishments or organizations, and hopefully government. Because as bad as it might be, sometimes government allows its head to work, sometimes, as bad as it can be a lot of times. So we need to keep pushing and do a whole lot of things right, consistently, so that we're able to make that mark. Mr. Ikoro, the creative economy is one of Africa's fastest growing export sectors. And it scarcely depends on, heavy infrastructure like some other sectors would need, like the ones we just talked about, energy, space technology and all that. Now, does this make creative enterprise the fastest path to early BIV wins? That's the first part of the question. And is the traditional academic model, what we have now, even equipped to produce founders in that space? Bearing in mind, there's been a whole lot of evolution in that space, right? Take, for example, broadcast. I don't know how many people wait for prime time news anymore, because the news, you get it on social media on the go. So you could attend to the question, sir.
Okay, thank you so much. Let me use a practical example of a student who was in one of the private university around the southwest. I won't call the name of the university. I will call the name of the student, just to keep this right there on. He was admitted into the school, 100 level. At 200 level, that university had a systemic problem with their media work. And they were having issues on how to solve that particular problem. They called some experts They couldn't do that. So he came and he saw the VC and he said, please, I have a way of solving this solution. You see, he's talking about real issue, real people. So he got there, he settled and changed the narrative, and that particular university saw an upsurge into that technology and they leveraged into it, and they were so happy that he was able to bring solution. So the next thing they did was they said, okay, because you've done this, we are going to put you on scholarship. Then after scholarship, we are going to refund what you paid for your previous years. And they took him to have an office close to the VC. And then from there, he started bringing in some product. He's out of that university today and is one of the youngest billionaire in town. He's just 25 years old. He graduated last 2 years. You understand me? Now, the creative industry has metamorphosized from the traditional way of operation. Nevertheless, for a BIV program, you will need to create a MCR. An MCR is a master control room, a station where even those who are doing it in patches have to be trained, you know, give the best approach to enhance proper productivity. Today we have every form of social media, everybody trying to do whatever they like. They are not trained. That's why when we were talking the other time, someone said social media is meant to what? Connect. But now what we see is what? All sorts. So if Babcock is going to change the narrative, you know, in some climes, they censor such issues. The reason why they do that is because there is no gateway. People throw anything in. Okay, let me use this. Nollywood, Bollywood, and Hollywood. The Hollywood is the Western word for the film industry. When I say MCR, I know I say MCR because MCR will contain those in the film, those in the music, those in the IT, and even connected to the space stuff like that. And it's going to be something that will be regulating even security. Okay, so now let me go. Now, there was a time Nollywood presentations were not making wave in Nigeria. When you check the content, you'll be wondering what kind of, you know, I don't want to call the names of those characters those days. Some of you can relate what I'm saying. Are you there? You are not there. Okay. I don't want to call the names. So some good-thinking Nigerians who are promoters have to discuss with the censors board that come. We need to take this creative industry to help this country to generate the GDP. And that was during the time of President Jonathan. And he invested heavily. So you know what I'm saying? We need infrastructure. Now let me give you a simple analysis, how I do it. Infrastructure plus well-maintained system give you good services. Don't just jump into a system, a narrative. We are building. There must be, for example, when you have all this media equipment, you need top-notch, super cameras, higher definitions. In fact, there is one they call black magic. This student can't get them. The more your media work is clean and very interactive, it attracts, you understand me, audience. So nevertheless, why is booming? We as an institution, we must create that infrastructure where we bring the BIV systemic work to have something very productive. And if we do that, let me tell you what will come up. It is not by age. it is by stage. If it is by age, you wait, you said no, we will be caged. We won't be in the page, there will be no wage, and this school will not be a siege. That's the problem.
Thank you. Thank you. Well said. Thank you very much. Let's move on now to Arvind. Arvind, your primary operational base is in Silicon Valley. And yesterday you made us know you didn't know much about codes 8 months ago, but now you are building things that some who know codes cannot build because you leveraged on AI, right? You have also helped build hubs here in Silicon Valley and also in India. Now, later today, you are going to be part of the judges that will listen to some of our students make pitches of what in their heads and in their minds, they think is the next big thing. You know how it feels where you think you have done something very, very masterful, but you're not striking the right chords. Or perhaps what you have called a solution to a problem is not really much of an interest to the society. What is it that this venture pipeline must look out for if it is to attract serious capital, not just grants or prizes or awards or accolades, we just clap and we say, oh, nice ideas. What is it that we must move away from, all right, if we're able to get to the point where we achieve what it is that we have set up for, based on your experience, both in the Silicon Valley ecosystem and in the Indian ecosystem where you also helped to set up something? That's my question for you.
You should know that the problem you're solving is something you're passionate about. You should know that the problem you're going to set out, you set the right measurements in place to know that what you're solving for is something that's real. And so you've got to take your own efforts seriously. That's the first most important thing if you want the world to take you seriously. Having said that, now when it comes to the BIV venture pipeline, the best proof point, honestly, are how many entrepreneurs are you graduating who are building products that really matter to the Nigerian economy and to the world at large, right? So I think the broader picture is to think of the world at large and the economy around you. And if that answer is negligible, then you know that you're never going to attract the right investment. So really, that is the first measure of success, is how many entrepreneurs are coming out of the system that you could tomorrow talk to the world about and say, hey, they have built something that is meaningful for the Nigerian economy. Now, I understand that that's going to take a little time, and maybe it'll take 1 or 2 years for you to get to that point. So while you wait for that metric to appear, you've got to set some interim metrics, right? The interim metrics are the quality of founders that you're bringing into the program. How fast are they able to adapt and build solutions that they think of? How many customers are they able to reach? How many products that are going out to the market are getting customer appeal? There are all of these what we call leading indicators, right? Revenue, investment, all of that are lagging indicators. They come after you do something, but there are leading indicators that you should look at. So you got to put those leading indicators into place to measure the program consistently till you get to the point where you have that kind of success, right? But at the end of the day, there is no reality like the entrepreneur who comes out and who has solved a problem. That is your most important proof point, and you've got to be constantly working towards getting those entrepreneurs out.
Thank you very much. Bakari, we're on to you now. My question is, when a company like Oracle evaluates an institution, and say an African university, and its innovation output for partnerships or talent acquisition, what is it that you actually look for?
Okay, thank you. So there are several things, but I'll just mention two. The first one would be something about execution, which a lot of them have said, repeated execution. What prototypes is your hub or the venture producing? How fast are they being developed, and how viable are they in the market? So these are like, or what is you see like your products before we jump in. So ideally it should be maybe companies like us jumping in from the beginning, which you are testing the waters and all, but no, most times we want to see what is being done, quality of founders you're picking, you're bringing into the system, what prototypes are being developed, what's the traction that those things are getting and all of that. So those are some of the things you are looking for. Then the second one will be industry alignment and also relevance. What content are they consuming, and would it make them competitive, globally competitive, right? What stacks are they building on? Are they doing cloud? Are they doing AI? Is it what the industry is currently, raving about most of the time? We cannot be talking about AI and somebody is coming to pull us back to maybe the Fortran age and all of that. So for me, those are the two things, in my opinion, that organizations, big tech like us will be looking at. Your execution level, repeated execution and success rate, and also industry alignment and relevance.
Thank you. Just a follow-up question. Oracle is big, really huge. Has all the resources to train talent independently, right? By that I mean independent of the universities. So why would an Oracle, partner with universities and their venture ecosystems at all, right? What's the business case? So we're not talking about a response now from a social community service responsibility point of view, right? CSR. So what's the need for Oracle adopting this approach to partner with institutions? Like you have Oracle University, you have Oracle Academy, so there has to be something that Oracle sees in these partnerships.
So for us, one thing would be lower risk for our society, CSR perspective, which is what we do at the academy, we give back and all of that. But besides that, it would be lower risk for us to, partner with, ventures like this, because it could be a pipeline for us at the end of the day. Is a maybe more stable, more reliable, and a more maybe cheaper way to even get talents to come work or have them in our work pipeline. Because the truth is, as much as yes, there is a lot of conversations about unemployment, underemployment, big tech or big companies are still looking for really talented people. That's the truth. Now, I was telling someone, as much as we just heard about layoffs across big tech, if you still go to their portals, if you go to their career pages, there's still thousands of jobs. So what's going on? So, yeah, it could mean the end of an era for certain people, but it's actually an opportunity also for others to, jump in. So if we're able to sort of partner with ventures like this, for us it's lower risk. Perhaps these talents have been tested and trained, because also the cost of training is not cheap, right? So for instance, they have gone through maybe for instance an Oracle Academy curriculum that makes them career ready, so they're able to just jump into the workforce without getting further trainings and all of that, because they've been equipped while they're still in school. And also lower risk for us it's cheaper, it's faster, and all of that. So that's one of the reasons why we would want to do this with you, aside the CSR.
And we would like to do a whole lot with you and Oracle. And I bet that the audience, whether staff or students, faculty, there's a whole lot of resources coming from Oracle that supports continuous learning. When and I'm going to get to that in a bit when I do a very little expose on how we are looking at the BIV project, especially from the curriculum point of view, right? So we better understand it. You cannot, as a teacher today, rely on what you knew 3 years ago, all right, to stay relevant in terms of what that student needs to be exposed to in class today. If that is your modus operandi, it means that that student you are training is already dead on arrival. As far as the industry is concerned, you are training somebody and giving him skills that nobody is using anymore. But while you are you are thinking you are the best thing that happened to that student, and you are probably doing it with all your heart and very passionately about it. But you are actually, from a corporate world operational point of view, you are damaging that student. Because you see, we take for granted what it takes to unlearn. Unlearning it's not easy. Especially when you've been on that path for so long and you believe that that was it. So unlearning to now relearn. I guess that's why Moses had to stay in the wilderness for 40 years. Because he had to unlearn the ways of the palace to be able to fuse into the vision God was laying on his heart to go rescue the Israelites out of Egypt. Right? So he needed 40 whole years to unlearn 40 earlier years that he spent in the past. So unlearning is quite a lot. Mr. David, you're welcome. Now, if a BIV venture product walks into your office tomorrow with a strong prototype and university backing, but no money, what will make you write the check? And what will make you walk away? I mentioned earlier how, you could just say, give nice pitches, nice everything, but the investor just looks away and says, no, not today. So what is that thing that you would see or hear that is going to make you look for your check and you'll say, you know what, we're in this together. What is that is going to make you say, no, not today. Maybe when next you do something differently or you get certain things right, then you come, let's talk again.
Good afternoon, everyone. At some point in my life, I had to take a job as a venture scout with a venture company, a venture capital. I worked with them for some time after trying to raise for 3 years in Dubai. And it was very difficult to raise at that point because I was raising wrongly. But then, working with Venture Scouts and reviewing hundreds of decks every day, I learned to raise. One of the raising fund is the easiest thing to do in a startup journey. Like, it's the easiest thing to do if you do it correctly. Now, why would I want to sign a check from a venture coming out of BIV? There should be. We need to do things correctly from beginning. Correctly, I mean, if we are talking about MVPs for products that will serve people within the university community, why are you coming to me to raise you funds if the platform is going to serve the community? I think BIV should think beyond that. We should begin to see products that are serving the country, that are actually coming from BIV. There are things that we have in the UAE that we do not have here. MBank, for an instance, there's something they do when they want to do verifications. MBank now has a video call function directly on the app. You click on this video call function, there is no appointment, someone takes up, and you are verified within minutes. there is no bank or fintech that has that platform operational in Nigeria. A venture from BIV have this design for a fintech firm like OPay, Zenith, whatever, Greener Pay like us. And then this video call verifies anybody from anywhere at any time. This is a free design that a student from BIV has done. And we reflect it on our platform that this is actually from BIV. This is just one. There are lots of other proposals that will come from students, but we need to see that BIV has developed products that are actually being used by people outside of the university community that will create that awareness. If I see anything coming from BIV, we're going to take it very serious because this is coming from BIV. BIV has done something really great. We would take it serious. And the trust system, because it's been developed, I would sign the check. Why wouldn't I sign the check? Because BIV has the name. But if we continue to develop things and sit and apply the Nigerian factor, which I pray BIV shouldn't apply, where we begin to sit on students' proposals and have favorites that we're not going to talk about this deck, close this deck, even when we see that there's potential in this deck. And then there's also this thing that's happening with VCs around the world right now, where we are seeing that Nigerian founders raise money and then they chop out with the money, and then you see a VC who's saying, oh, we can't raise funds. Nigerians are not getting early stage funding right now. That's the fact. The reason is because they raise just $100,000 and then they chop out with the money. And then you see the ones abroad, you actually raise this money, $500,000 abroad, and then they come back to Nigeria and begin to pray. I don't know who taught us to pray like this. We're getting so religious. So VCs are saying, we'll raise you money, you come back to Nigeria and you start praying. That trust system, we're beginning to lose it. So if BIV can start rewriting this, where we have ventures that are creating real problems for existing platforms, then signing checks are really, within 10 minutes, investors have decided to give you money. You can agree with me.
Thank you very much.
I don't completely agree. Apologies. I just wanted to address it.
Oh, okay. Nisi.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think that there are a number of reasons why there are issues in the funding climate, right? Yes, we do have a number of founders who take money, they jackpot, they do their wedding, whatever. But I don't think that that's the main narrative. Why
it's not. It's not the
main.
main.
Really, I just wanted to make sure we're painting that picture clearly. I think that there's a significant reason why there's a funding, winter, not just in Nigeria, but across Africa. So for instance, one of the reasons is our founders go, you raise money in dollars. We know what is happening to our currency in Nigeria. Now, a lot of times I've sat in so many places where someone says, how much is this person making every year? In total, it's not even up to $1 million. And they're like, the numbers don't make sense for me, right? And that is part of what is pushing us in the innovation and investment ecosystem to start to say, how do we think about more innovative funding vehicles that work for our businesses on the continent, including unlocking local capital? So I just wanted to paint that, color it a bit better. That yes, I do align with a lot of things that you said, but the reason is not just the taking the funding, like the way you painted
that's a whole topic.
Like
that's a whole topic. There are lots of reasons why funding is not coming into Africa at the moment.
So let's paint the picture a bit clearer. I didn't want you to just focus on the Japan.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, David and Nisi. I'm on to Mr. Onam now. I call him Korede. And Korede and I have a very, very strong history. And the question I want to ask him now is, if BIV had existed while you were a student on this campus, what would you have done with it? I know what you are able to do. I know your capabilities. I know the things we did together. I know what you're doing now. But it strikes me like you would have been on a faster track, right, to achieving some of the things you are achieving now. That's why I need you to just paint that picture of going back in time, and there was a BIV when you were still a student. So what would have changed for you, and how you would have structured yourself into what BIV is doing today?
So, honestly, I love the question because it's kind of solved a lot of problems that I faced in trying to build my career. The first one being, maybe I wouldn't have struggled with looking for an internship. And you can imagine if BIV had a partnership with CCL, and CCL is referring startups who are looking for places to incubate, and they could spend 3-4 months in Babcock, using Babcock students as talent resources to build their MVP before they go to market. Right, that would have been like an ideal scenario. And then you look at the next step of, while we were in school, we were all building different products. I can remember BCC is one of the only departments that runs the election totally digital. This was even before INEC was even doing digital voting. Like BCC election was always going to be digital. And then every year, we had this handover session where each executive that was running the voting system hands over the software to the next set, and then we run the same system or upgrade it for, I think later on we expanded to boost our elections also. So that's a pipeline of transferring skills. And I can imagine all the solutions we built that were just MVPs. Just recently I saw that there's a Babcock Microfinance Bank. You can imagine if Babcock Microfinance Bank is using a core banking application and students were building on top of those solutions and building fintech solutions, they could already learn how to build fintech solutions at scale. You know, another idea is at that point you also have students from the finance or Babcock Business School who could have understood how to interact with CPAs. One of the biggest problems right now in the Nigerian banking sector is when I work with a bank, they always say we don't have CPA operators, and then I spend another 1 week taking everybody through how to create credit systems, how to configure loan management, and these are things that could have been taught via the different investment vehicles that are present on campus. So Babcock BIV already has some vehicles already that could expand its offerings to not just cut across providing services for the institution itself, but rather enabling the students to grow their skills and use it as a validation ground for the things they are building. And I can then imagine if by my final year, BIV already has a platform where I can already push my ideas to then validate it within my own market space of the university. If I have a product and just 3,000 students are using the product every day, that's more than almost anything that any Lagos founder is validating their product for, right? And I could already establish my own metric of product market fit using that data alone to approach the investor and say, you know what, I could expand this to other universities. I mean, this is what literally Mark Zuckerberg did. He built a product just for his own school and then scaled it to other universities. And then you tap into other markets that potentially you are sitting on a gold mine. So for me, those would have been the different avenues that it could have been really easier. And one last point, and I think this now goes deep into the theoretical education. One of the things that I struggled with a lot was finances, reading statement of accounts, balancing your books, reconciliation, and unless the hard way. And I could imagine if, as part of my curriculum, if my entrepreneurship did not just talk about what it means to register a business, but how do you structure your company? How to understand private equity? What it means to work in the financial space. I don't have to be an accountant or a chartered accountant, but the basics of finances for a startup. And those are things that would have let me build a bridge to not spend so much time in trying to organize or set up my corporate governance.
We're taking care of all that.
Exactly so. So those will have been little things that will have gone a long way to bridge those gaps for me in how I started my career. And I could have imagined if anybody had that kind of pipeline, when they are graduating, they wouldn't just be graduating with just a degree alone. They will be graduating with a network of potential colleagues who could be co-founders, a network of investors, a network of, understanding of regulations. Another thing is, and I keep referencing the microfinance bank because that opens so much in regulation, in understanding marketing. Babcock University has ventures in, I think, in making water. These are places that students could have been able to increase their capacity. And another example is one of the things that I noticed in the media space today of every Babcock student in the media space is that while they were in school, they were either in the sound department or in the technical department of the church. So in every chapel you go to, you always see people who are at the back controlling the sound, configuring the mics, taking pictures. Most of them went on to have careers in media just because they were in church and they were doing those activities. I didn't know anything about sound management until I did that, but that's a skill that will forever live with me if I decide to then pursue it at a later point. So we already have the framework, but we then need to apply it in other avenues that are actually towards commercialization. So that
if I leave you, you will not allow us to go. I know. That's how so much exists in his head. So one final one for Okwayemi. If a BIV venture gets hacked in its first year, and statistically it will know it's going to face serious threats normally, because fintech, and that's why when recently I had something to do with one of the big fintechs around, and we were trying to play around building fraud detection systems around their ecosystem and what they do, and I had a hard time with the data that was at our disposal, because how do I build a model relying on foreign data? The Europeans and people from certain parts of the world don't have the kind of problems we have, so their appetite for fraud is not as high as we have in some other parts. So I need data, homegrown data that shows, the real picture of what we face here if I'm going to build a model that's going to be reliable. So statistically it's proven that they will come under attack, right? And imagine that within the first year there's that big attack, and fintechs will tell you, we don't report everything. We go through a lot. We don't tell everything, for some reasons. How does BIV build security into ventures from inception to help? Because one thing I know is that by the time we put together all the groups that are going to be having one thing or the other to share with us, we're going to see a fair deal of them, delving into the fintech space, which is a very, very promising space, right? So how do we go about this? Thank you.
All right, thank you for that question. I would like to cite some examples. The ones that we already know that are on social media, especially this particular here. I'm sure we all heard of Ramita, right? Getting breached. We heard of Sterling Bank as well, having some sort of data exposure online. We recently heard about CAC, right? The body that helps to register businesses getting breached. And then I'm sure we ask ourselves the question that these people are big organizations. There's barely any institution that doesn't make use of Remita, right? For school fee payments and all of that. And then we ask ourselves, why are they still going through this? Because if you actually do take your time to read what happened and what caused the exposure, you would find out that it's just a very tiny mistake or a very little mistake of, that somebody made. And then some of these incidents that happen, they call cybersecurity firm in. And by the time you start your investigation and you start raising some things, they are not even aware that these things were things that they were supposed to do. So bringing it down to BIV venture, right? Security, like I said something earlier. I said security should be a design. Now say that three things are important that needs to be done. The first is governance should also be a design for you. When I talk about governance being a design, in coming up with a product in the fintech space and all of that, first thing is, are you using the right frameworks? There are different frameworks. Are you using the right standards? There are different standards that govern all of these things. If you're trying to develop something around FX, foreign exchange now, you're thinking of SWIFT. If you're trying to develop something that involves card payment, you're talking PCI DSS, is a standard. Now, some of these standards are already being enforced by CBN for these fintechs, for these financial institutions to say, before you can tell me that you want to build a product that handles card management, right? When I say card management, we all use ATMs. Your ATM card, before you are allowed to use it by a bank, they have to be compliant to something. Now, before all of that, you need to go through some form of standard, some form of audit, some form of reviews to be sure that your report comes back compliant before you are allowed to. Any institution right now that makes use of card that is not compliant with these standards, they get fined by CBN. And that's why, even despite going through this rigorous exercise of compliance, it's mandatory for them to do it yearly. And why? Because of people factor. I do say in any training that when you talk security, you're talking the technology, you're talking people, and you're talking process. If your application is, I built a very fantastic application, everything is going on fine, solving a real life problem, and I'm getting market traction in terms of revenue and all of that. Now the question is, gone are those days, before I say the question, where you need money, you have to work into institutions to withdraw over the counter and all. Now, there are applications that you can use from the comfort of your house. It's gone from trust to digital trust. And when the customer tell you, give me digital trust, the customer is not telling you, give me an application for me to send money to my mom. The customer is telling you, give me an application for me to send money to my mom, yes. Give me an application that can identify me to be using this particular product. Now, give me an application that if I am not the one using it, you can tell. And also give me an application that you know that whatever I have on or within your account is secure for me. So when we bring it down to like BIV Ventures, I would say that right from the pipeline, right from the prototype, all of these products has a lot to do with programming, infrastructures, integrations, API calls, and all of that. You can have people that are very versed in development. You can have people that program a lot. You can have software engineers and all of that. But the truth is, are they doing it using governance by design? Again, are they doing it using security as the baseline? Are they doing some sort of code review? Are they doing some, it's not only let's do user acceptance testing for us to see if the product we are developing is fine. Right from the development of the product, are you reviewing some codes? Are you going through some sort of application security guidelines? Are you doing testing? Are you doing stress testing as well of those particular products that you're about to push to start using? So that is very, very important. And another one that we fail to do most of the time is test failures. I'm sure we don't want to fail, but test failures before you scale. And what I mean is, you can have an incident management procedure, put it to test even before an incident. So should you be faced with an incident, what are your stages towards recovery? What's your business continuity like? So if you get hacked in your first year of throwing out a product, that's definitely because of something that was not done securely. And if you get hacked, yes, reputational damage, you're going to lose money. By the way, NDPC is going to come for you. If there's some sort of customer data exposure, like the way they are coming for CSC right now, because 25 million company information got exposed online. Remita as well, about 3 terabytes of information, personal information of you and I, got exposed online. And if you're talking about stealing back as well, credentials, they even got access into the core banking. Core banking is the brain of a bank. So if attackers have gotten access to the core banking that contains all of us information, they were as good as naked online. So it's a big issue. It's something that we fight daily. We fight it every day. And it's something that needs close attention to. So right from the point of, I have an idea. My idea is solving a problem. Go prepare a prototype. To the point of, you're having MVP. You are testing the MVP. You're making sure that every angle, everything is being done. There's something called business logic. Business logic is you're trying to manipulate the logic of the way an application is supposed to work. That's if I'm supposed to send you money. I want to see if you can send me money instead, without me having access to your account. So you are just trying to play around it in a way that you that have been developing the product product to work like that. But the question is, have you blocked the product from working the way you don't want it to work? Which is what the test will do for you. So yes, it's a very big issue, and it would be nice for it to start from the inception of developing such products.
Thank you very much, Abba. Thank you. And it is at this point that we will allow you to go back to your seats. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like you to put your hands together for all 10 of them.